Hey, welcome to Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour. Tonight we are doing Hotel California by the Eagles, one of the most amazing albums of all time, released December 8th, 1976. And as you can see, I have my warm sweater on tonight, so I'm going to talk low and calm, not crazed as usual. And my guests, Gina and Bello and Cha-Cha, who doesn't like to be called a guest, but I have to introduce everybody. But we haven't seen Gina and Bello since before Christmas.
Wow.
This is the first time back in 2019.
That's
Very
right.
excited.
Happy New Year.
Great to see you guys again.
Wow, Happy
And
New Year.
we were supposed to do the show last week, but the weather went down to negative 100 degrees.
Yes.
And what was the problem, Bello? Why couldn't you, what frightened you so much?
The squalls. The winter squalls. I never even heard that word before, and then I couldn't hear enough of it. They were talking about it every 5 minutes.
Yeah, nobody knows what a squall is, but it sounds dangerous.
Sounded evil.
My grandfather was killed in a squall once.
I don't know what it is, but I know I don't want to be out.
I just feel like there's
On
so many
Bagel Street.
terms now for
Yeah,
weather.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. What was that craziest one last year with the
Vortex?
monster tsunami or something like that they called it?
Well, no, I don't remember that. It's
tsunami?
just the polar vortex.
Yeah,
is
everything
new.
is crazy. And
Right. What's
so
the
it
word?
was
I-
sub-freezing temperatures last week.
Yeah.
It was so cold.
so cold.
It was so cold, Bello. I saw a politician with his hands in his own pocket.
Ah!
That's crazy.
That joke never gets old.
No, it's a good
Cha-cha.
one.
So what else? Oh, it made me start thinking about that this kind of weather actually toughens you up so much that people who live in Florida, California, their whole life, if you didn't grow up in the Northeast or places that are worse than this, you're raised weak, that you have no idea how how hard this struggle is to live through a New York, a New Jersey winter. It could kill you.
True. I never
Absolutely.
thought about that.
Gina, do you agree with this?
I totally agree.
Yes.
So this will come into play later on when we're talking about the Eagles and how easy they had it in California while we're struggling like dogs in the snow and the cold. And Cha-Cha, you had a good line too. Didn't your great-grandpappy always say, if you made it, go ahead, say what he used to say.
He used to say, if you live through February, you live to see another year.
See, there you go. If you can make it through February, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was Frank Sinatra Mastaloni said that. So there was so much going on that we have to talk about since last time. I know you guys appreciate all of this. A lot of people passed away. Some of our favorites. I bet you don't even remember now. Of course, Penny Marshall passed away.
Oh, yes.
Laverne.
Yeah.
And what was her
Myrna
name?
Turner.
Yes, in The Odd Couple. That was actually her first role.
Yes.
Loved her in that. Myrna
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Laverne. What was
Yep.
Laverne's last name?
DeFazio.
Very good.
Nice.
What was Shirley's last name?
Feeny.
Very good. See, that's something you'll never forget.
Yes.
You'll be 100 years
Yeah.
old. You'll forget your
Right.
grandkids'
Very
names,
important information.
but you'll never forget Shirley's last name.
Shirley Feeney. It's so cute.
Yeah, very sad. She was a
Damn,
big
yes.
director as well. Married
Yes.
to Meathead for a long time.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's another thing. Meathead will be called Meathead till he dies as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Even though he made 10 billion movies.
He'll always
And
be
just like,
Meathead.
what's his name? Ron Howard will be called Opie.
Opie, yeah, the
Opie.
poor guy. Yes.
Richard
So-
Cunningham.
Yeah.
Right,
So, and then you
right.
know who else passed away? Dr. Hook passed
Oh.
away.
Oh, yeah.
I even forget the
Oh.
guy's actual name, but the lead singer of Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show
Yeah.
passed away. Of course, the
Sylvia's
cover of the
mother.
Rolling Stone, one of the best songs.
Yeah, right.
And of course, Sylvia's mother,
Yes.
a lot of songs. And you know who else passed away? The captain died.
Oh, yes.
Captain Daryl
Yes.
Dragon from.
Oh, that was his real name?
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
his
that
real
was his real
name.
name.
Daryl
Yeah.
Dragon.
You know, that's
Should
not
call
right,
himself
though.
Daryl Dragon. That was a lot cooler than the captain.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
You would think that someone from Metallica should get a name like
Yes,
Daryl Dragon.
yes.
You can't if you were born Daryl Dragon,
Right.
you then can't become the captain. And to Neil, you should live up to that name and do
Yeah.
something radical with it.
Was he in the Beach Boys? Didn't he
Yeah, I
start in the
think
I think
he
he
Beach
did
Boys?
started
a
out
little.
as a keyboardist for them.
Yeah.
Really?
I had read that.
Wow.
Yeah, they were married for many years, and then they got divorced like after 35 years.
Yeah, why
Oh.
bother? I really need to speak to someone to tell me why you would bother to do that.
Because
Yeah, I
he
just talked
insisted
about
on being called the captain in the bedroom.
Yeah. Enough is enough.
That'll do it.
And he kept giving her a Dutch oven and saying, "Fire on the poop deck." These are all right off the top of my head.
Right,
None of these are
yeah.
scripted, by the way.
Do you remember the show, the Captain and Tennille
Sure.
show?
Yeah, I guess.
He never spoke. He never said a
No,
word.
you're right.
Really? Wasn't
No,
that
no.
Penn and Teller you're talking about? The captain never spoke either?
I
No,
think
he
he
never
was
did.
the original.
He let the music do the talking?
Yeah.
I guess so. He
There you
smoked
go.
a pipe with that hat and ridiculous.
So, and I know this next person was a big, Gina was a big fan of hers. Carol Channing passed away.
Oh, wow.
And of course, she was she 100 or very close to it?
92
Very close.
or something.
I thought it was upper 90s.
Maybe you're right.
Yeah,
I think it was like
maybe. I'm not
97.
sure.
Yeah, it was close to 100,
Oh, I
I
didn't
think.
know that.
And
We
then
could use our phones.
she was everywhere during the 70s as
Yeah.
well. When we were
Oh,
kids,
she was on
Yes.
every show.
every show there was Carol Channing. I never knew exactly what
Especially
she did.
Love Boat. I remember her on Love Boat.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
That
true.
voice. All right. I
Don't
know.
agree.
Hold on. Bello has to do an impersonation
do.
of Carol Channing.
Oh,
Go.
here we go.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Good
I
job.
always
See?
I
I
don't
know.
mean rhinestones. Diamonds. Yes,
So
but
this
that
boy
was-
wasn't down in
when I
the
was a
village
kid.
doing some shows.
He
love that Bello
yeah.
sometimes.
He was actually. Did you know that Bello during high school he worked as Carol Channing's understudy?
There you go.
Thoroughly Mod Millie.
I love Tyler, but I guess because,
He's
like you
out.
said, she was always laughing.
Exactly.
She was on everything.
She was so funny too. That
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I don't know how she would think to go into show business with that
Dang.
voice.
That voice.
But she did, and she made it.
The original Hello
There
Dolly.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah, that's right. That's
Oh,
right.
what
That's
happened?
the
We were
first time I saw
we
it.
watched the show about that.
Yeah.
Oh, and Barbara, she was mad because Barbara Streisand got the movie for.
Yes.
Yes, she
Yes,
was
that's
very
true.
upset.
I remember
And
reading
Wow.
that.
she called her the C word. She was yelling it out from the
way.
seats
Ooh.
during
Oh,
opening
she
nights. She had a megaphone.
What show were you watching?
Oh, you're sick. That's great.
All right, and then the last one on my list here is Kay Ballard. You remember her?
Yes.
No.
She was from a short-lived show, but it was a hysterical show.
Great show.
The
Yeah, I love
Mothers-in-Law.
I love that
right?
show.
That
Yep.
show was
Remember his
so
kids
funny.
watching
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Exactly. It was
Yeah.
on for just
And
like
we
a-
were
Briefly,
really
yeah.
little when that was
Sure.
on.
because we watched it in reruns. That it was on.
I was just going to say,
yeah.
it ended in 69.
Yeah.
I read.
And it was only like 1 or 2 seasons. And I remember
So
that
we-
they replaced the guy. They did a bewitch on us.
Right.
That they replaced one of the guys. It was originally Roger C. Carmel, and they replaced him with Roger Deacon. So
same,
they
same
just
first name.
Yeah,
like
exactly
that, yeah.
what they always do, like Dick Sargent and Dick York.
Right.
They figure you won't notice if you
Right.
just get an actor with the same first
Right.
name.
Yes.
Because you know who the Roger Deacon is. He's that bald guy with the glasses.
Yeah,
He was
he-
on Leave It to Beaver. He was Lumpy's father, Lumpy Rutherford's father, in Leave It to Beaver. He was in the
Was he in the Dick
Dick Van Dyke show.
Okay.
Really? Yeah,
He was in
yeah, okay.
everything. You know him with those thick,
Yeah,
dark
yeah,
glasses.
Yeah, I
He
know
has a
who
very
he is.
No, no,
distinct
more
voice.
Big and tall. I'll show you a picture on the break.
He had a very
Pull it up.
distinct voice.
Anyway, she passed away as well. She was,
Yeah,
you know what
she
she was
was
famous
great.
for? Do you remember your father used to do this? It was an Italian thing, right? She would bite her hand
Yeah.
when she got
Oh,
mad.
all right, I know who
My
that
mother
was.
did
now.
too.
Yeah. I
Yep,
definitely knew
my
her name,
mother
but
did
now I
that
know what
too.
you're talking about.
Yeah. So
But she
a
used
lot of
Italian
It was-
words as she was biting.
a lot of good stars passed away over the
Wow.
break.
Oh, my God.
So we should not
Wow.
take any more breaks. So let's play some
Two
music.
meals.
How about that, Cha-Cha? When we
Sounds
take a little
good.
break here. All right, you know what song is up first? Hotel California by the Eagles off of this album. And we're going to talk all about that song.
Okay.
We're not even going to talk about the rest of the album, really. We're just going to talk about that song the whole time. And then after that, we're going to play Victim of Love, the live version, which is also an Eagles song. And we'll be right back. Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour 474 The Mix. Hey, welcome back, Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour. You just heard Hotel California and Victim of Love. And we're going to go into Hotel California and we're going to talk about Victim of Love. That's very important. A lot of these things come back, a lot of stories in this Eagle story. But first, of course, Madhouse Magazine forces us to read a story. So, of course, we managed to pull up a Don Henley story. Because did you know he was in the Eagles?
Yeah. Heard something about
For
that.
a very short time, 3 months. So anyway, let's read this story. Headline is, rocker Don Henley got stuck in a heating vent at a Holiday Inn Express over the weekend. Henley, 71, was staying at the Holiday Inn Express outside of Philadelphia following an Eagles concert. Henley likes to stay at inexpensive hotels while on the road as a cost-saving measure. Henley left his room at 1:20 a.m. to get a Mountain Dew, chewing tobacco, and a package of Funny Bones. Upon returning to the hotel, Henley discovered he forgot his room key and therefore was locked out of his room. Henley decided that instead of bothering the staff, he would shimmy up through the heating vent and back into his room. Wow. Henley climbed into the heating vent and started towards his room, but soon became disoriented and ended up over the wrong room. Hotel guest Haley Brinkman saw Henley peering down at her while she was on the toilet and sprayed him in the face with hairspray. This caused Henley to become even more panicked and disoriented. Somehow, Henley managed to end up in the heating vent in the adjacent building, where he was finally discovered and freed by firefighters at 7:30 a.m. Wow. Firefighters secured Henley's legs with rope and began to pull him out of the vent until enough of his body was out, and then pulled him the rest of the way out. Henley regained consciousness and was examined by medical personnel and released. Dr. Renee Richards explained that Henley had some minor scratches and cuts and apparently soiled himself as well, but will be okay. It was an absolutely remarkably stupid thing to have done, the hotel detective Wayne Pulley exclaimed. He only has himself to blame. Henley explained that he drank his own urine to stay alive. I always keep a bottle of my own urine on me in case of emergencies like this, said Henley. When asked why he didn't just drink the Mountain Dew found in his possession, Henley directed Madhouse magazine news to his publicist, Alicia Smith. There you have it. All the news not fit for print. Don Henley. Now that's what you call a lost weekend.
Yes,
Stuck in a heating vent, drinking your own urine.
Wow.
I think that was a. He wrote a song right after that. It's called Last Resort.
Yeah. And you just drink the Mountain Dew.
Oh my goodness. That's crazy.
That's funny, yeah, because when we spoke to him, we said, what happened? Why did you, as a tough reporting, we said a question, and he said, I need you to speak to my publicist about that. He refused to answer, yeah. So anyway, all right, now it's time to get to the monkeys.
The monkeys.
What a segue. I have no idea.
Because I was reading something else on here, and I was thinking of something else. So that made me say monkeys instead of the Eagles. So, let's get to Hotel California here, and we're going to get to the Eagles. Because once again, I always say this, but this could be one of the greatest albums of all time. No question. There will never be an album close to this. 10 billion years more of existence, Cha-Cha. Aliens, whatever, dinosaurs come back. No one will ever make a sound better than this album. So it was released. I put my glasses on for this one. It's so important. I don't want to get anything wrong. So it was released. I have wrong information here too. It was released December 8th, 1976. And it was the 5th studio album. It went platinum after 7 minutes of being released. One of the best. That's not true, Val. It's one of the best-selling albums of all time. It has been certified 26 times platinum in the U.S. and has sold over 42 million worldwide. Wow. That means every man, woman, and child owns at least one copy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I own 7. Yeah. That's not. I think my math's a little off there because I think there's more than 42 million people in the world. But anyway, let's talk about this album now. Let me hold this up. Look at that.
Are we going to smell it?
Of course, we're going to smell that later, but not right now because there's so much going on here that the Eagles, let's go back. Can anyone name the Eagles? The original Eagles? I'll start you off. It was Don Henley and Glenn Frey. Everybody came from somewhere else. That nobody was born and raised in California. I think Henley was Texas. Glenn Frey was from Detroit.
Okay.
The other guys were from Minnesota. They were all from like the Midwest.
Wow,
Nobody was from California.
Was Joe Welsh an original?
I don't know who
Joe
he is.
Walsh.
Walsh.
No, he was
Timothy B. Schmidt.
Yeah, those are all later. Now the original guys. See now this. Yeah, the original guys were Randy Meisner and Bernie Madoff. It wasn't Bernie Madoff. His name was Bernie Leadon. So
come on. I gotta stop this show.
Let's start over.
Out of control.
No, the guy's name was Bernie. He's one of the few people in rock named Bernie. You can't count Bernie Taupin because he was only a lyricist. But he was can you name another musician named Bernie? Famous rock star? No, you cannot.
No,
that is the answer.
Did I put Bailey's in his coffee?
I don't know. Something's in there.
I'm missing a page of notes.
Put it in mine.
All right. So anyway, that they came to fame as the backup band for Do You Know Who?
Linda Ronstadt?
Yeah.
Very good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know.
for a
I
short
just took
time,
it
it was 1971, and they were playing at this place called the Troubadour.
So this
where-
was the four people you just
no,
named?
this was just those two guys.
Oh, okay.
That they were the backing band for Linda Ronstadt, and everybody hung out at this place, the Troubadour, and they were all friends.
Yeah.
Jackson Brown, James
Yeah.
Taylor,
That's
Carly
where Elton
Simon,
was
Carole
discovered.
King.
Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
exactly. That concert,
Yeah.
11/17/70.
Yes.
Yes, big night. I remember it well.
Because I remember Jackson Brown helped write "Take It Easy."
Yeah,
right?
he actually did write
He
it.
did.
Oh,
he did.
oh, so it was him. I
That
thought it
was
was
a big
him
help.
and-
He wrote it all by himself.
Oh, I didn't know that. So why did they get to use it?
Exactly.
Because everyone was friends then?
Yeah. And Don Henley probably cheated him out of it and say, "Oh, that song sucks. We'll do it for you though if you don't want to do it."
That's like sex. We'll just.
I
Yeah.
think you're making that story up.
That part I'm
because-
making up, but
yeah,
he did
because
write that song, yeah.
but I
Oh,
think
so he wrote
let
the whole
them.
thing. I
Yeah,
thought
they
it
were all
was him.
friends,
Yeah.
and
Oh.
he got the money for it and
Oh.
all of that stuff. But then Randy Meisner and Bernie joined the band, and they released how many albums? I don't know. This can't be the seventh album. Then it's
That was
fifth,
the fifth,
actually. That's what
yeah,
I said.
I remember
Did I say seventh?
No.
Okay, it was fifth. That they released a bunch of albums before that, and they all went gold. So with a very successful, like soft rock. How would you describe it? Country rock kind of
Yeah,
thing.
soft
Mellow
country,
rock.
And
mellow
mellow, the
rock,
California sound. See, this
easy
is,
listening.
and this is
Yeah.
exactly, and this is
Right.
where it comes back that they were soft because, well, they actually weren't because they grew up in the Midwest, so they knew cold weather. So, but the people in California were soft
Right.
because
Yeah.
they didn't
survived
they didn't have to
February.
survive a 6-foot storm walking to school.
Right. They don't even have rust on their cars because there's no salt out there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. What do
So,
they know?
can you imagine that? Never experiencing snow and
Yeah.
freezing
Are we back
cold.
to this again?
Yes, because February. I hate the cold so
Aw.
much,
Yeah.
and February just drives me crazy. That I want to smash someone in the face every day of February. So,
Especially Valentine's Day. That's the day you want to kill people.
so yeah, so all the albums went gold, and in 1975 they added Don Felder, and they, they wanted to move more towards rock, away from the country, and that ticked off Bernie because Bernie was a big fan of that type and bluegrass and all that kind of stuff. So eventually he left as well, and you know who replaced him?
Afraid to
Joe
say.
Walsh.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and that was
That
it.
was the crazy Joe Walsh. too,
Yes,
right?
this
That
was
back then.
crazy
Lots of
Joe
fun.
Walsh.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And this was the nucleus, and they were ready to rock now, and they went into the studio and they started to record this album.
Wow.
What was it called again? Hotel California.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ah.
So now we're going to talk about this and everything that was going on with this because let's go over the lyrics first. I want to talk about the song so bad that I can't even wait for the rest of the
yeah.
album. We got to talk about this because I was discussing it earlier today with Gina and Bello, and the word colitis came up, and Gina sent me a link, and then I went down a wormhole, and I started the rest of the day.
Wow.
I just was researching Hotel California, the meeting, and everything. But the album as a whole and the song. Basically the underbelly of LA scene, the high society, hedonism, drugs, excess, all that kind of stuff. And then, did you know that the Eagles were Satanists? That's what I uncovered today.
Wow.
That I
That was one of the theories.
yes,
that-
I went
that
down
was
this,
there.
and it all made sense to me, Bello. It's like when you found out Paul McCartney was really dead. So now I found out the Eagles were Satanists.
Oh my.
They worship
That-
Satan.
Right, and that's what this whole song was about, the Hotel California. First of all songs in the 70s, they were about drugs, right? Or
Sex, drugs.
or
Yeah.
girls, drugs, or Satan.
Oh, Satan.
So right,
Sane.
so the name, the Hotel California,
Right.
THC stands for the active ingredient in marijuana.
Oh, that's
See,
awesome.
is that the smoking gun or what?
Right? Like
Yeah.
LSD with the Lucy in the
Ah.
Sky with
It's
Diamonds.
as good as playing the
Yeah.
album backwards.
Exactly.
THC.
So,
The
and then
Hotel California.
you go
Yes.
through the lyrics, and it's the warm smell of colitis,
What
right?
is
So I
that?
looked
Tell
up
me what it
colitis.
is.
Right.
A lot of people think it's colitis, which is a stomach
No one
intestinal
knew.
problem.
No one
Yes.
ever thought that.
So, and that can explain the warm smell of colitis, that would be a very bad
that
smell.
would be
you know?
disgusting.
You wouldn't like
I
that.
still say
But
the Dorito theory.
Yes,
there.
Gina thought it was warm smell of Doritos.
Stephen and I agreed on that.
Yeah,
man. I remember
and-
singing that as a kid.
Yeah.
And that would make sense too, because he's smoking so much pot that he's
You
having the
know,
munchies, so he's eating warm Doritos.
Yes.
Wow, that's a genius idea.
Are you going to tell me what it is? Because
We're going on. That's what it is. Nobody actually knows.
Nobody actually
I'm giving you
knows.
my
There's no
theory.
def- There's no definition
This
of
is
it.
what I uncovered.
Oh, that's where
and
the
this
rabbit
is
hole came in.
right, and that's what I discovered, that
Okay.
they're Satanists, and that this song is about Satan, and that if you follow the
That's
lyrics,
quite a structure.
that you can check out, but you can never leave.
Right,
See,
right.
Yeah.
that, and this, I'll get
It's
to that in a
definitely about
second.
drugs.
Well, hold on. But then they allegedly formed up with Anton Levy, who was the head of the Church of Satan in California, and he started it in 1969. Hence the line in the song, "We haven't had that spirit here since 1969." And they
I
say
didn't
all of this
uncover
stuff.
that.
I
Yeah,
got the
every line
chills
exactly.
right
You
now.
I'm a
wait,
little scared now.
wait. You're
Yeah,
gonna hold.
we're gonna-
You're gonna
we're gonna
scream.
That album.
If
Yeah.
all right, let me make a
Church.
disclaimer.
I'm right there.
Let me make a disclaimer. If
All right.
anyone has a heart condition, you might want to leave now. Remember that when they would show every horror movie in the 70s?
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Pregnant
Warning.
women
Yeah.
should not see it.
Yes.
So
Oh my.
anyway, all right. So let's open up this album now, and I'm going to show it to Cha-Cha
You're
first.
scaring me.
Right, that they say
no.
that if you look in here, that this is the lobby to hell, and if you look back there,
right.
there's a shadowy figure up in the window, and they say if you zoom in, it's Anton Levy.
Oh.
It's hard to
I
see
do
right here
see
on the
something.
faded, but yeah, you could see the
You
man up
definitely-
there.
Right there.
There
You-
is a
Exactly,
figure.
there's a
Yeah.
shadowy figure up there,
Oh my
and
God, I'm
that's
gonna
Anton
nightmares.
Levy.
You know I'm very
Anton
sensitive.
LaVey, that's his name. Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
very delicate.
And the guys in the band, they said, "Oh no, that was just an extra," and he walked into the wrong spot. How much of a dummy do you have to be when you're supposed to be down here
Right, yeah.
in the lobby
up in the
and you
window.
end up there? That's like Don Henley ending up in the wrong building in the heating vent.
Yeah.
He's a blind
Once in a
extra.
lifetime.
Yeah. So now they have all the lyrics here. Let me. I better get my glasses back out again for this one, because there's so many things here. Blah blah blah, and because it says right away there's a shadowy figure in the doorway, and then this could be heaven or this could be hell. They say hell already. Voices down the corridor, yada yada yada, and the master's chambers. They gathered for the feast. They stab it with their steely knives, but they can't kill the beast. The beast, of course, is
Satan.
Satan.
Oh, wow.
And, but one thing is a true fact here, unquestionably, they admitted to this. The Steely Knives is a nod to Steely Dan.
Yes.
Because Steely Dan mentioned them in a song right before this, because apparently Walter Becker's girlfriend really liked the Eagles, and it rubbed them the wrong way. So he said something about the Eagles in there, not really bashing them, but just mentioning them. So,
Yeah, I
and they were
just heard
big
that.
fans of each other too. So, and then the one thing that Don Henley did talk about, no, it was actually Glenn Fry discussed. He said that when they were writing the lyrics, they wanted to have a feel of a Twilight Zone episode, that nothing really to make sense. It's just imagery, one
Yeah.
piece of imagery. They were
Into
trying to do
another,
like
yeah.
a
Subject
Steely
to
Dan.
interpretation.
Exactly. Subject to interpretation. See, and that's the beauty of music.
Yeah.
That they shouldn't tell you
Sure.
what songwriters never tell you what the song is about, because they want you to imagine it yourself. But
Right.
I never, all my years listening to this, and it is one of the most perfect songs ever.
it's
There's,
crazy.
the guitar solo, Gina, the
It's
dual lead guitar
unbelievable.
solo. It's just magic. It's melodic. There's nothing like a melodic guitar solo. If you can hum the guitar solo, it's awesome. So that was Joe Walsh and Don Felder doing this. And actually, Don Felder came with the chords to this song. It was much slower. They described
Really?
it as Mexican reggae. So then, what's his name? Henley. No, Glenn Frey.
Fry?
Yeah, both of them together. They arranged it
Frey.
properly and put it in this text. And then Don Henley wrote the lyrics, and it was like a group song. And then those
Yeah.
guys went to town. They
It's
had
an amazing arrangement.
dueling guitars on it, and just Everything about that song is amazing.
Yeah, it is one of the best.
I'd
Absolutely.
be very happy if I wrote that song.
Yeah, I'd be happy if you wrote it too.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. So it's an awesome, awesome album. So let's talk about some of the other songs too, because did you know there were other songs on this album?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about
Yes.
what their
Favorite
meanings
songs,
are.
Okay.
Like next song, Hotel
That's it.
California
New
went to
Kid
number
in Town
one.
is beautiful.
Of course, New Kid in Town.
Yes.
Of course, you know what that's
Beautiful
about.
harmonies. Oh,
It's about
I love that song.
It's about Satan, of course. He's the new
All
kid in
right,
town.
stop with Satan.
And of course, Life in the Fast Lane. What a great song that is.
Yeah.
And Henley talks about that, or Frey. I can't even remember. They're interchangeable to me at this point now. I can't know which one's. Well, one of them's still alive, so I'll know when I see him.
that's a great riff too.
Yeah, that was Joe Walsh practicing the
Yeah.
Don Henley.
Really?
No, I remember now. It was Glenn Frey driving in his
Why
car.
is he saying that?
What?
It's Fry.
Glenn Fry. All right. Interrupt me if I say Frey. Glenn Fry driving in a car with some guy, and they were all wasted because there was a lot of cocaine usage during this time. And that fueled all of this shenanigans. And the guy was driving like 100 miles an hour in the left-hand lane. Frey has got his nails into the dashboard screaming. And he says, slow down, you're going to kill us. And the guy says, life in the fast lane, dude.
Yes, that's right.
And
Yeah.
Fry let this stick in his head for the longest time, and he said, I'm going to write a song about that. I just need the right riff. And then one day they're at rehearsal, and Joe Walsh is warming up, and it's just a finger exercise.
Yeah.
And then Frey says, hey, what's that? He goes, I'm just warming up. It's like Ed Norton.
I was thinking, yeah.
That would be
River.
Glenn. That would be
Swanee
Fry.
River. Yeah, yeah.
I know.
Right.
But it's
And-
100
Ed
years
Norton.
already.
What?
That you're saying Frey
because of the
and
way it's spelled.
Yeah, but you
Glenn
know,
Fry.
it's Glenn
Remember Fry?
All
Fry.
right, all
Where
right.
have you
But I'm
been?
busy thinking here. I'm doing so much stuff here.
He's
I'm
expelling
trying
a
to
lot of
entertain.
knowledge here.
Right,
so-
just like the other guy I know is LeVay. I was
Look
calling
at
him
her
Levy.
kissing
Right,
up
right.
to you like
Yeah,
you're
right.
never gonna have her back again.
Glenn Fry.
Don't worry, you're here.
Trying
You're
to
good.
defend, trying
Don't
to
ever
Cynthia.
interrupt the guest or correct the guest.
You're not the
And
guest.
from now on, I want you to be calling me Captain, by the way, the host.
Need a
So-
pipe and a hat. Yeah.
Anyway, where are we at now, Chacha? Now
I
you,
said
you
what?
just
Life in the fast lane.
you, this dead dog stuff
I can't come from a
every time.
ponderous.
Ever
Ponderous.
ponderous. All right, so
What's
yeah.
happening?
Life in the Fast Lane, another great song. Wasted Time, a beautiful
yeah.
song, one of my favorites.
Yes.
Victim of Love. See, now this song was the beginning of the end because what's his name? Don Felder, or Folder, as Carol Ann likes to
Oh
call
my
him.
God.
Don Felder wrote this song, and he came in with this riff, and he had a bunch of stuff to it, and he wanted to sing this song. So they said, all right, you wrote it, we'll let you try.
Yeah.
And he, 10,000 takes, and he still can't get it right. So there's Don Henley, one of the best singers in the business,
Right.
sitting there. So they
Right.
conspire this thing to have their manager, Irving Azoff, take Don Felder out for lunch. So while he goes out for lunch with the guy, Henley records it in one
Damn.
take, nails it, and they produce it, and they package the album and put it out while Felder's at lunch.
Did you
Wow.
tell him?
Yeah.
And
Good move.
he comes back in and he reads the paper, and it's Victim of Love, #1
Oh, wow.
on the Billboard charts. And he's like freaking out. And he goes,
Oh,
I
damn.
could sing it better. And they're like, then this
No,
Don
you can't.
Glenn Frey, or Fry as you call him, he seems like he'd be a nice guy if you're on his good side, but he seems like he'd be a real SOB
Oh,
if you're on
yeah,
his
I'm
bad
sure he
side.
was,
Right.
And and he ended up running this like a well-oiled machine, and with a iron fist. And he told Felder, too bad.
You're
go
out.
go to hell, he said. Yeah, it's, once again, hell
Back to
comes
Satan.
back into the
Now
mix.
you
Yeah.
know.
Hell feeds
So
over Tor.
yeah,
Remember
we'll
that?
get back to that.
Satan.
So then, Cha-Cha's favorite song off this album, "Pretty Maids All in a Row."
love that
One of the most
song.
beautiful songs, Joe
really
Walsh
is.
composition.
I know.
And then
It's
you
very
have-
obscure.
Right,
but-
"Try and Love Again" and "The Last Resort," which is my favorite line from a thing. If you give a name Paradise, did I say Fry?
No, but
No.
I have to sneeze.
What? Cha-Cha is bringing the show down with a anvil tonight.
Okay.
Why don't you just hit me in
okay.
the head with a hammer? That would cause less disturbance to the show.
I'm back.
All right, and the last song on the album, Last Resort, which has the line, if you give a town, if you call it paradise, you can kiss it goodbye. And
Yes,
that's the truth.
that's one of my favorite lines.
Yes, exactly. If
Really?
you're somewhere and they call it paradise, you better
But
pack your bags
yep,
and move.
kiss it
'cause
goodbye.
That's it. Yeah. So, as we say, that was the beginning of the end of the Eagles, because the album was so successful that they couldn't keep it up anymore, and they all admitted this was their downfall. This was their pinnacle. Their entire career, they strive for this moment, that they work like dogs, and they reached the mountaintop, and they couldn't go any higher after that. And Randy Meisner could not keep up with the pace. It was so successful at this time. They were touring nonstop, and he had kids, and he had like a mental breakdown, and he couldn't hit that song. What song was that? I think it was
I can't tell you
Take It
why.
to the Limit.
Oh, take it to the limit.
At the very end, when it has that really
that's
high
my
note,
favorite part.
and he was so afraid that he couldn't hit it. And one night he didn't want to do it. He said, "No, I'm not doing it tonight." And someone, I think it was Glenn Frey or Fry.
Let's call him Frey.
Glenn Fry almost had a fist fight with him backstage afterwards.
Wow.
And right after that, Randy Meisner left the band,
Okay.
of course. And do you know who joined the band after that?
That was Timothy.
Timothy.
Timothy
Yeah.
B. Schmidt. Yes,
Yeah.
who sings like an angel.
He
Oh
really,
my
you
God.
can't believe it's a guy.
Could he hit that note?
Oh, he can hit
can
notes
hit-
you can't
oh,
even
yeah.
hear.
Yeah, it's true.
Exactly. You
He's-
My
take your glasses
yeah.
off
Is
when
he
you're
your
listening to him.
favorite?
He's my favorite. Well, I love I Can't Tell You Why.
Exactly. I can't tell you why. It's
That
such a
is
smooth song.
the-
All
one of their
right, here's a
better-
good one.
Fantastic.
I describe him as the male Karen Carpenter.
Yeah.
What do you think of
Wow,
that?
Yeah.
That's a compliment.
Yes.
She was supposedly the greatest
Yeah, I agree
singer
with that.
Yeah.
in the world.
Melodically.
Now,
Melodically.
who
or something
sang
like
One
that.
of These
Yeah,
Nights?
I heard that.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, because that's my other favorite.
So, all right, that brings up another topic that we were. All right, let's take a little break. We got to play more music here, Bello.
All right.
I don't know what you're trying to pull here. So, for Cha-Cha now, because Valentine's Day is coming up, and
Very sweet.
in lieu of a present,
Oh man,
I am dedicating Pretty Maids All in a Row, the remastered version. See? Not everybody
get
would
the
just
remastered.
dedicate a regular version. I'm dedicating the remastered version.
That's nice.
I feel
Pretty
so
Maids All in a Row to
special.
you. And then we're going to play the Wasted Time live version. And we'll be right back. Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour 474 in Biggs.
Aw, I love that song.
Hey, welcome back. Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour. You just heard Pretty Maids All in a Row and Wasted Time. And we were just discussing the news that it was just uncovered that abortions are now retroactive. So don't piss your mother
God.
off, because if you're 50, she could still abort you.
Yes.
So, and they're having
Right?
they're having
Gina and I
drive-through
are
clinics
going to
now.
church right now.
So,
yeah. I
anyway.
gotta go to church after
In
this
keeping with
episode.
Satan,
Crazy.
yeah. So where were we? Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about. Oh, yes, harmonies. This band had the best harmonies in the world, and recently I was having a discussion with my son and Cha-Cha of the best harmony bands ever.
Right.
Now, Cha-Cha picked the Eagles.
I did.
I picked Queen.
Ooh.
What do you guys think? You got Beach Boys, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Simon and Garfunkel, Everly Brothers, on and on. Do you have any opinion on this?
Elton John band.
Oh.
Best
I
harmonies,
never thought
yeah.
about them.
Harmonies are wild.
Yeah, they
Listen
do.
to some of
Yeah.
those backing vocals.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
she's
true.
my favorite singer too. But I don't think of harmonies when I think of him.
Yeah,
that's,
I guess
When-
it's. You
I'm
know.
going with Queen still.
Yeah, well, I was just talking about this with my son, the Beatles.
Oh, yes, the
Like-
Beatles.
like-
I,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right.
The
That's
song
Beatles.
helps.
You know what? You're
The-
right, Bello.
I don't know what they would call
My
that,
daughter
but
always
they're
says
doing
that too.
background
We always
vocals
talk about the Beatles.
in the foreground. Does that make sense, Dennis? Like help? And then when I was young.
Yeah.
But at one point it's before
They're
they're singing it. I can't even explain it.
it
you
was
know what
a
I'm
flash
saying?
sideways. Yeah. I
Oh
know.
man, it's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
All
They
right,
were,
yeah,
they were ahead of
Beatles.
their time in every aspect. So yeah, you can't go wrong with any of those. The Beach Boys had great harmony
Yes.
too. Crosby,
Yes.
Stills, Nash and Young were genius.
Yeah.
But my favorite was Queen, and
Yeah,
the
good stuff.
Eagles. Can't go wrong with the Eagles. Their
No.
harmonies are
Yes,
amazing.
yes,
Yep.
ridiculous.
So
Yeah, they were
harmonies are very hard
Very
to pull
important.
off.
You don't hear that.
We were
You
talking
don't hear
about
that
too,
now.
Dennis, right?
Yes.
Very important harmonies.
Harmonies
Yeah.
are very important, and if you can't do harmonies, you know how important they are because it sounds terrible when you try to do
try.
harmonies,
You're better off not
and
doing
you
it.
can't. Yeah,
Just
so if
don't
you
do it
can't
at
do it, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't
Yes.
even try.
I guess you know why I picked the Eagles, because okay, the Beatles harmonies are great, but there were 4 of them. And
Not like the Eagles, who are
with the
5
Eagle-
of them.
No, how many were there? Think
Five?
about it. No, you're wrong. Because
I'm
they
wrong.
all sang. No, there was.
They all sang lead.
They all sang lead, and when there was 1, 2, 3, 4. There was 5 or 6 of them. It's really
Singing at
hard
once.
to
Hold
get
on a
6
second.
That's what you mean.
people to sing
Oh, you're
solo.
saying the more there are, the harder it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess so. That's
Yeah.
true. Sure.
Right. That was.
I
my
think that it's easier because it makes a bigger sound the more you have. And
It
if
could
you have,
go very wrong.
well, of course, but
really
you know,
quick.
they had one more person than the Beatles.
No, they had 2 more.
No, they had 5. Don't make up 6 because they didn't have 6.
And then I had
It
6
was
at one time.
who was the 6th?
Oh yeah, you're right.
At
sorry.
their most, they had 5, but
My bad.
their lowest with Bernie, they had 4. All right. So as before we left off, the Eagles were heading down at this point. Well, in some people's eyes, after selling 10 billion albums, the next album that they recorded with Timothy B. Schmidt was In the Long Run, and it only sold like 1 billion albums. And there was a lot of fighting going on. And Timothy B. Schmidt left his other band, joined this, and he was the happiest guy in the world. He said, I finally made it. And then like at the first rehearsal, they're all fighting and yelling.
man.
He's
Right.
like, damn.
Where did I get myself into?
Wait,
Yeah.
he tried to call his old band up and say,
He was in
I want to come back.
Paco, right? Paco?
Poco.
Poco.
Oh,
wow.
Right, right.
Poco,
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I didn't know that. That's great.
yeah. So, that album came out, had a few hits. What was In the Long Run off of it, and had some weird, it
What album was that one?
was called In the Long Run.
Oh, you
Yeah.
just said it.
Just
The
the Long
Long
Run.
Run.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what was the big hits off of that? Like
The Long Run.
Right.
That's a big one.
I think that was the only hit.
Yeah.
Which New York Minute was that? Don
No, it's
Henley?
Henley Solo.
Okay.
That's
Run.
Henley
So-
Solo.
So so
Which
then
was
that was
great.
it. They
favorite.
they were basically done, and then I don't even remember what year they actually broke up. You guys remember that?
No.
Well, they broke up shortly after that in the 80s sometime, and that was it. Until they agreed to get back together again, because they all hated each other and they went their separate ways, right? So in '94, I believe it was, they got back together with the Hell Freezes Over tour, which was the greatest name for a comeback tour
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
Once again,
Right.
pointing to hell,
Another
Satanists.
Satan reference.
So,
Going to
Well,
church, Josh.
Yeah, I'm going. I'm that. But I think it was because they said they wouldn't get back
Right, of
unless
course,
hell
yeah.
froze
Right.
over.
Exactly. So
right?
that's why it was
So,
genius, and they
yeah.
did. They
When
called it Hell Freezes Over
over.
tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was a great tour, the great
Yeah,
album
I
they
saw
came
that
out
one.
with, and everything. And they've been touring ever since. But then they had problems. Glenn Frey had to fire Don Felder for being a jerk. So he says that this was a great line. Glenn Frey said that a band is not like a complete democracy. It's more like a baseball team, that not everyone can be the pitcher. Everyone has a role to play, and everyone does, what they do best. Not everyone's the pitcher, because you can't pitch. You go play the outfield. But what's his name couldn't accept that. Don Felder couldn't accept that, and he was too busy counting my money instead of worrying about how much money he was making, the millions he was making. But then he wasn't satisfied with that, and Glenn Frey got crazy, and he said, we write the songs here, and because they were writing the bulk of the songs, him and Henley,
Right.
and they were singing it. So they took over, and they threw him out, and they said, screw you, you're going home, and that was it. And he's never worked with him again.
Wow.
And then
Didn't know
after
that.
Glenn
I didn't
Frey
know that
passed
either.
out, there was lawsuits and all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then when Glenn Frey passed away,
Oh.
they had Axl Rose replace him. You remember that, Cha-Cha?
No.
Well, it was a Madhouse magazine story that reported it, but it
Not
turned out to
true.
be not true.
You're right.
That he would have been good, though. I thought he would have been great in that role. But they ended up with some country guy. What's his name? Gina?
Oh, no.
Well, actually, his son, Glenn Frey's son, joined the band,
Oh,
and
right,
some
that
country guitar player.
Small
I
fry.
think it was Roy Buck Owens or something.
Roy Buck.
That's
Bucko.
that works for me.
Roy
Works.
Buck Owens. So there you go. And so that's it. That's the story of the Eagles in a nutshell. So that was the Southern California scene there. It started out back in the 60s. You had the Byrds, and then it grew into Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Joni Mitchell, everyone converging into the Laurel Canyon area of California. And, everybody that went to California, Charles Manson hung out in that scene,
Yeah.
of course, too.
Right.
All right, so I want to talk about John Gotti then, because
I love John Gotti.
we have been watching a lot of documentaries about John Gotti, and what they did to him is criminal.
Well, he was actually a good guy.
Criminal.
Is that?
It doesn't matter, but it's just the point of it is that the way the FBI, because I've been watching Sopranos too. It's the 20th anniversary of Sopranos, right? Wow. So it was a
We've been binge
it was a
watching.
marathon.
Yeah, I saw
one
it.
weekend
Been
we
on,
started
yeah.
watching a bit, and then we went back and started watching it binging from the episode 1, and it's such a good show, best show ever.
It
and
really is.
then we're watching John Gotti documentaries, and
Right.
it just made me think, how the FBI, if they want to get you, don't get on
yeah.
the wrong side of the
Right.
FBI.
Yes,
they'll
that's
get
true.
But they'll stop at nothing.
Yeah.
And no matter how legal it is,
Yeah.
illegal, immoral, whatever, it's
Right.
just that, they just go to a judge and do whatever you'd get arrested for. They break into his house and put
Yeah.
a wiretap in there.
Yeah, wow.
And, I think whatever he did, if you can't catch him doing it, then, that's it. That's your
Right.
problem.
Yeah.
You can't go breaking the law. The
They did,
ends
yeah.
justify the means.
That's what they
You
did.
know,
Right.
yeah.
because then what's to stop them? They can do it to your house too.
Right.
That's what
Absolutely.
this country is
if
built
they're
upon.
gunning for you, you're
Yeah.
done.
Right, exactly. So,
Yeah.
and then
That was upsetting.
the documentary that we saw was about his son too, because they
Right.
couldn't
Right.
get John Gotti for 10 times they put him on trial and they couldn't get him. He got off, and then the 11th time they wiretapped his house and the club and his mother. They actually put a wiretap on his mother.
Wow.
He made that
She
up.
let them do that. I'm
She
surprised.
didn't know. She went to
didn't
get her
know
hair
that.
did,
Oh,
and
wow.
they put it in her beehive.
I have great respect for John Gotti. Because
What?
you heard, even in death, he knew that he was going to hell. He knew.
That's
he li-
right.
Yes.
That was awesome.
Did you see the
No,
documentary?
I didn't
tell
see
that
it.
part.
Okay,
I have to
really
watch it
quickly.
now.
Really quickly. So on his deathbed, of course, he was still in jail.
Right.
His son was there, and the priest comes in, and the priest says, "You know why I'm here? I'm here for last rites."
Last rights. Right.
So John Gotti puts up his hand, and his son says, "Dad, and
Now's maybe the time you want to.
Yeah.
Right, we want to talk about
Right.
right.
And he was like,
"Screw
Screw you. Get out of here. See, now that's a gangster to the
That's
end.
a
That's right.
gangster.
He didn't rat on his
Nope.
friends to get out.
Wow.
Now all of these little
his
gangsters
fate.
who, like this guy Tech 69, he is with tattoos on his face. You see
Yeah.
him in the multicolored teeth, and he's a little punk, and he calls
Yeah.
himself a gangster. He got arrested
He's
for something.
screaming like a
2 days
bitch.
later, he was ratting on his friends,
Wow.
and John, they don't
Yeah,
make
they don't make
gangsters
men
like
like
they
that
used
anymore.
to.
No,
Exactly.
they don't.
Yeah.
And his son took over, and they went after him.
They did.
Relentless.
Yeah.
They put him in jail for one thing, and they told him, all right, if you go to jail, admit this, won't bother you anymore.
Right,
and then
right.
as it was time to get out, they put another charge on him. He said,
Wow.
hey, you were
Right.
told me you wouldn't do that.
And
Right.
his
Yeah.
father said to him, "Don't do this,
Exactly.
John. If they will never, ever, ever stop coming for you."
Yeah, so he had to retire from the
Yeah.
mafia. You can't
Yeah.
you can't
He
run a
did,
good
and he
mafia
said, "My
anymore.
father was right."
See, that's the
Okay.
problem.
Nothing
I
nowadays.
think that I'd rather have the mafia and John Gotti living on my street because we all
yeah.
grew up in
Heck yeah.
this neighborhood,
Yeah, they
right?
know most of them in the neighborhood.
I grew up
right?
in Queens. I was very
Right.
close to Howard
Yeah.
Beach, and Howard Beach was the greatest neighborhood, the
Yeah.
safest neighborhood in
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah.
You
Still
guys
is.
brought up in Brooklyn and Staten Island. You had mobsters on every corner,
Yeah.
and they never caused you any problem, and
Nope.
no one would
They took care
commit
of the
any
neighborhood.
crimes
That's it.
in those
yeah.
neighborhoods.
You
Exactly.
better not come in.
Now
and
it's wild animals just running loose in the
Yeah.
streets,
Yeah.
It's
jackals, if you will.
yeah.
So we need
But you can't with social media and everything today. You could never be in the mob.
well,
No.
No, you can't.
You shouldn't have a high profile. That's what the old the
Yeah.
mustaches, as they were called, they got upset at John Gotti because he's running around with a suit, fancy suit, and
Japa John.
yeah, right.
And you
that's-
know what else you can't? Why you can't have the mob anymore? Because there are no more payphones.
Good point.
That's true. You know how easy it is to tap and get the
Wow.
a cell phone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Remember that from Goodfellas, Big
I
Paulie.
do.
Yeah.
That
Call me at this.
not even that he would never even talk on the phone.
That's
The other
right.
None
fat
of them
guy
did.
from the pizza place
None of them
would have
did.
to run in
That's
the rain.
Yep.
give a message to Paulie, run back to the
Right.
payphone and call the guy.
It's true. You're right.
You know, and that's it.
No
they,
more.
they don't have the.
Oh
and
my
you know,
God, I could tell you stories from Brooklyn.
come on, tell it. Now's the time.
Just, I mean, they all lived in my neighborhood.
You don't have to
Yeah.
name
It was
names.
all Bensonhurst, and I'm not going to.
Oh,
But I
absolutely.
remember my mother running up to the school one day because one of them was killed in front of the church.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, I can't even think of the guy's name back.
Crazy Joe Gallo.
then. No, it wasn't Gallo. I'm thinking early '70s. One of the Gambinos.
Okay.
They were all around.
Yeah.
But my aunt used to be a waitress for the card games.
Oh, get out.
Nice.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I can tell you some colorful
Yeah.
stories. She's madly in love with John Gotti.
Oh my goodness.
What- oh.
Wow,
My
that's
father's
awesome.
sister. It was Carlo Gambino. That's who was
okay.
killed.
Oh.
Those were the good old
Google
days.
that. Yeah,
You know, you don't
1970
hear
something.
You don't hear much about that anymore. Nobody being found in trunks anymore. They're not digging up bodies. Those were good times.
Yeah, those were good times in the 70s.
Well,
It
that's
really was. It was
And
so
then we
cool.
knew, we
Yeah.
knew, like, you know, you couldn't talk on the phone like my friends' parents and stuff. Like, there were certain things we couldn't do.
Yeah. Those are
No.
good times. See,
You knew it
even
was being tapped.
even the gangsters were better back then. The criminals were better back then. Everything was better in the 70s.
Yeah.
So
So
simple.
stuff.
there you have it.
Such
Yes.
simple.
These snowflakes can't be gangsters.
Snowflakes.
I wonder what California gangsters were like if they grew up in warm weather, you know?
They were
Oh,
can't call
See?
them
God.
snowflakes.
All right, so what do you get when you cross a sex offender and a pirate?
What?
R. Kelly.
Ah,
There you go, baby.
Good one.
That's
All right, so now we are
He's
going
so
to
cute.
smell this album. Go out and get this album. You must go get this album. Ah, very nice smell. I'm going to say my favorite song off this album is Hotel California, even though it's been played 10 million times.
yeah, I can
every
still listen
time
to
I
that every
hear
time.
it, it's still fresh and new
Yes.
and
That is
genius.
something.
Right, and look at that. Look,
Wow.
open it out up, Gina. Besides Anton LaVey in there, you got all that picture. You got the lyrics on the side.
look like
You
she's
got
good.
even look at
Yeah.
the album sleeve has stuff all over it.
Nice.
Look at that.
Good
Yeah.
stuff.
That is impressive.
Did you smell it? Did you
So,
Not yet.
yeah, what's your favorite song, Bello or
New Kid in Town.
Chach? What's your favorite
No doubt.
song?
What's on this album? Is it
Pretty Maids.
Well, then, yes.
Yes, that's Josh.
All right, now we're gonna
Yeah.
wait for Gina to name her favorite
New Kid in
song.
Town. That's my favorite.
Wow. All right,
I'm with you,
there you
Bella.
go.
I'm with you.
All right, so now,
Reminds me of good
did
old-
I forget
good old
anything
days.
else, or we're
think
good here?
so.
All
I
right, so
think we
let's
pretty
wrap
much
this up
did it.
now, and we're gonna go out with playing "Try and Love Again" by Eagles, featuring Randy Meisner on that one. That's a beautiful song, and then we're gonna take it to the limit. That's
you
Randy
like
Meisner
that?
hitting that high note with those beautiful harmonies, and then we're gonna play the Artist of the
Yeah.
Month. So thank you for joining us here in the Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour. Check us out, madhousemagazine.com. So, all right, thanks for joining us, Madhouse Magazine Radio Hour. Let's hear it for us. Woo-hoo-hoo! Good job, Bello.